Hello, hi and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Tengku Nur Ilham binti Tengku Murai, matric number 2020950861. Inshallah, I will start a presentation about the first issue in society, which is about the right of non-Muslim in a Muslim country. So we go to the introduction. The first point is the position of non-Muslim needs to be celebrated and placed in the right place in line with their position as human being. Second is the human right of non-Muslim must be in line with their position as legal citizen in an Islamic country. So based of both of the point, this is said to be so because it has been stated in Al-Quran in relating to human right in general and not just for Muslim only. And some right and guarantees has been given to non-Muslim residing in Islamic countries even if they do not adhere to Islamic ideology. So you go to the next slide, which is about the non-Muslim human right according to Islamic perspective. So basically there are four the human right of non-Muslim according to the Islamic perspective. The first is right of freedom. Point number one is religious freedom. Islam gives freedom to every non-Muslim to embrace their teaching without any caution to convert to Islam. And second point is freedom of thought and expression. In addition, they are also given the freedom to express their view as long as the individual does not disseminate information that could defame Islam and create conflict that have the potential to affect public order. And then is right of employment and appointment. So basically, they are also given the freedom to conduct business transaction or venture into any field of employment, including sector allowed in their religion, such as alcohol and pork. However, such transaction must be restricted among them only, and also they are prohibited from making transactions that are not halal to Muslim. And for the right of employment, allocated form of position in the national administrative system, they are not directly involved with the making of important government policies. The third is non-Muslim human right according to Islamic perspective is right of ownership and property. So the point is free to own property that is required by their religion, even though it is forbidden in the teaching of Islam, such as alcohol and pork. So it also means their property cannot be taken at will except with their pleasure. And for the right of property, they are entitled to receive the distribution of the necessities of life they deserve as citizens without any discrimination from a religious point of view. So the last one is right of security assurance. The point is entitled to personal protection, including protection of privacy. So it means non-Muslim will get protection in an Islamic country. So point number 3 is the right of non-Muslim are guaranteed through legal aspects. So every citizen is bound by the same legal provision regardless of religion, race, gender or skin color. So this proves that Islam strongly guarantees the right to equity and fair security without any discrimination in the aspect of punishment given. So we move to the next slide, which is about non-Muslim human right according to Malaysian perspective. The first is element of freedom. The Federal Constitution of Malaysia has provided for several things to realize the amortization of the human right of non-Muslim in Islamic countries. So in Perkara 31 stipulates the position of Islam as the official religion of the Federation. However, there is no denying that the right of other religion can be practiced peacefully as long as they do not disturb public order. Second is Perkara 11, provide the right to every citizen to profess and develop his religion. However, it is subject to the restriction and control of state and federal law if the religious belief involve Muslim. Alright, so second is element of equity. Every citizen has the same position and right under the law of the country. It means there is no difference in the treatment of negotiator based on religious, race, and this can factor. So I will pass the presentation to Nushaira to present the issue contained in this title.
Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Shaira binti Ahmad Fazli. My matrix number is 2020984673. So, today I will continue the presentation, and I bring along two the first issues that related to the right of non-Muslim in a Muslim country. So the first issue is the issue of the word Allah among Christians. Alright, actually these issues, the use of the word Allah has given a rise to a prolonged debate, especially in Muslim society, which is these issues have resulted uneasiness, especially among Muslim and also the Christians. These issues began to be widely discussed after the editor of the newspapers, Herald of the Catholic Weekly, when they used the word Allah that mentioned is their God. So, alright, we go to the first definition. Let's see how we can interpret these issues. Alright, let's see to the definition. We see the name of Allah according to the Islamic view, to the Western view, and in etymological. So, in Islamic view, Allah is the name of the glorious God, which comes from Ismul Jalala, and Ismul Jalala with the attribute perfect nature, stated in the scripture of Al-Quran, which is Qadim and Azali. Meanwhile, the name of Allah according to the Western view is a derivative from Arabic language, which is from the Semitic language and Aramaic language, as expressed in Encyclopedia of Britannica. Meanwhile, in etymologically, the name of Allah is probably a contraction of the Arabic Allah, which means the God. The name's origin can be traced back to the earlier Semitic writings, in which the word for God was Il or El, so the latter being an Old Testament synonym for Yahweh. So Allah is a standard Arabic word for God, and is used by Arab Christians as well by Muslims. So let's move to the second slide. Let's see the resolution, the resolution of the view of the scholars, which that allowing and not allowing of the use the word Allah among non-Muslim. So we see to the first box, which the scholar view that allowing, which the well-known scholar, which of Al-Qaradawi, Wahba Al-Zuhaili, Sheikh Fawzi Al-Zafzaf, Dr. Zaharuddin Abdul Rahman, Dr. Muhammad Asri, Zainul Abidin. So the view from this first stream is seen more focuses on the legal aspect of the origin of the word of Allah, because they see it in the practice of since the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the second group is the scholar view that not allowing was Sheikh Abdul Hamid Al-Balali, Sheikh Abdul Al-Muhsin Al-Abikan, Sheikh Abdul Fattah Al-Alam, Dr. Haruddin, Dr. Khadijah Hanbali, Dr. Khalif Muammar, and also the Muasarah National Fatwa Committee in Malaysia. So the views of the second group is based on the text of the Quran. They believe on the text of the Quran, historical facts, and also the theories of the linguistics. So from the point of the view of the text of Quran, in Surah Al-Hajj, verse 22, in Ayah 62, which means that is because Allah is the truth, and that whatever they invoke beside Him is false, and that Allah is the High, the Great. Sadaqallahu Azim. So from this ayah, we can interpret that every Muslim who allow the word to be used by non-Muslim are considered to have conspired to appease their action. So this matter is determined based on the method of Islamic قواعد الفقه الرضا بالكفر كفر وبالمعصية معصية. So this method emphasizes that the involvement of the Muslim in matters of disbeliefs and disobedience either directly or indirectly has the potential to affect the position of our Aqidah. So let's move to the next slide. So the results of the Muasarah of the Fatwa Committee of the National Council for Islamic Religious Affairs of Malaysia has convened for the 82nd time on 5 to 7 May 2008, and they decided that the word of Allah is only a sacred word that is specific to the Muslim and should not be used by the other religion in accordance with the provisions of the law that has been written in the Federal Constitution. Non-Muslim, they can recite, they can mention the word of Allah, but the issue here is they cannot use the same term of Allah as their God.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Asha binti Asman, metric number 2020987711. So for the next issue, I will explain about the non-Muslim involvement as Shari'i lawyers in Malaysia. So let's look at the introduction. The involvement of non-Muslim in the aspect of governance and administration has the guiding basis that Islam has provided. However, after independence in Malaysia, the involvement of non-Muslim in the governance of the country, including the appointment as minister to lead a ministry, made it a celebrated right. So, triggering the issue lately involved the appointment of non-Muslim leaders in Malaysia, which has had an impact on established as-siyasah as-syariah. In addition, some parties also stated that this issue can be assessed from the point of view of human rights as a proper citizen. This is because the Federal Constitution has established the right to equality in the aspect which causes no significant difference involving the right of employment of every citizen in Malaysia. So, focus from various parties on the Sharia legal system in Malaysia when Victoria Jayasili Martin, a legal practitioner, disputed the refusal of the Federal Territory Islamic Religious Council to process her application to register as a Sharia lawyer. This issue arose when the Court of Appeal ruled that an action contrary to Section 59(1) of the Administration of Islamic Law, which is Federal Territories Act 1993, had been taken by the Federal Territories Islamic Religious Council, which is MAIP. Therefore, to challenge the decision issued by the Court of Appeal, MAIP has filed an appeal to the Federal Court. Finally, the Federal Court ruled that MAIP action was not inconsistent with the stated and upheld the High Court decision prohibiting the involvement of non-Muslim lawyers to practice as Shari'i lawyers on 24 March 2016, which is about the law involving non-Muslim as lawyer. The explanation of the question of the appointment of non-Muslim as Shari'i lawyers has no specific evidence from the Quran or As-Sunnah. So basically, arguments from non-Muslim are acceptable according to the aspect of defense and prosecution. It is also referring to Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 42, which means they are the people who like to hear false news, eat a lot of what is haram. If they come to you, decide between them or turn away from them. If you turn away from them, then they will not harm you in the least. And if you judge between them, judge between them with equity. Surely Allah loves the righteous. So, according to Hanabilah and Shafi'ah juries, the involvement of non-Muslim as representative in legal matters is harus. And next, the obligation of the Hanafiya fuqaha regarding the representation of kafir zimmi alone is absolute in every affair. And fuqaha Malikiyah prohibits non-Muslim representation in sale and purchase transaction as well as debt claim. Next, we will look at the solution. First, need to refer to the current reality that exists in Malaysia. Although in essence the fuqaha have required the involvement and appointment of non-Muslim as lawyer in the legal aspect of the cause, this is because the importance of local factors and cultural values of the current society to determine and interpret Islamic law and the role of the government in setting a policy or managing issue mainly involve the interests of the community under administration based on the framework As-Siyasah Al-Syariah. Next, the action and decision of the government should be based on the methodology of As-Siyasah Al-Syariah. In an effort to elevate the position of the Sharia court, in general, the involvement of non-Muslim in the administration of the Sharia court may be of some benefit. However, to ensure that the interests of Muslim in Malaysia are preserved, the risk that will be incurred as a result of such involvement must be considered. So, regarding to the legal maxim, which is Dara'ul Mafasid Uli min Jabalil al-Masalih, which means avoiding harm takes precedence over good. And next, a lawyer needs to have a clear understanding of Islamic principle and the basics of ijtihad, because the principle of a lawyer is not only to act as a representative in the matter of defense and the prosecution, but they must play an important role in running the justice process and facilitate judges to issue a law. Next is need to have a true discussion to explain the provisions between and more perfectly. This can be done through the establishment of a consultative panel body involving authoritative agency in the Malaysian legal world, such as the Malaysian Bar Council, the Malaysia Muslim Bar Association, the Malaysia Sharia Judiciary Department, and so on. And lastly, compromise and good understanding from all parties is required for each issue, so that the framework and sentiments cannot be seen from the racism alone and can ensure the harmony and stability of the country legal institutions are preserved. So in conclusion, in order to avoid this issue being misinterpreted and capitalized on by certain parties, the polemic related to the involvement of non-Muslim as Shari'i lawyers need to be managed well. So next, we will explain about the appointment of non-Muslim leaders. So non-Islamic leadership according to Islam. First, guided by the verse of the Quran, some scholars such as Al-Jassas, Al-Alusi, and Al-Juwaini prohibit the involvement of non-Muslim in leadership matters. Some other scholars, namely Muhammad Abduh, Rashid Al-Ghazuni, Yusuf Al-Qardawi, and Tariq Ramadan, allowed their appointment to be conditional, taking into account the current reality that exists today. Then we will see the plans of the non-Muslim in government that will be done. If the non-Muslim has a plan to overthrow Islam, then he is banned from the appointing him as a leader, despite the fact that the appointment is not absolute. So if there are no negative element in them, in fact, it is made obligatory for Muslims to cooperate with a non-Muslim when they do not have bad intentions toward Muslim, and there is no need for such cooperation. Next, we will look at the appointment of non-Muslim as a leaders according to uruf and maslahah. So uruf is a habit that is generally accepted and rooted in society. Therefore, it is necessary to see and take into account the uruf of place to take or appoint non-Muslim as a leaders. So as it is known that Malaysia has a multi-racial and multi-religious society, and chores in Malaysia society will occur if the ruling based on the several texts that forbid Muslim from appointing non-pastors as leaders, because it is absolutely unacceptable and can create a huge gap between religions and races that will tarnish the image of Islam. This is because there will be injustice to non-Muslim if there are only Muslim representative in a plural society. And according to maslahah, maslahah is a matter that is accepted as the basis of ijtihad if it leads to benefits and harm through research that has been done. So non-Muslim leaders are accepted if the leader is able to look after the welfare of his people compared to Muslim. However, the legality of maslahah must be based on the general principle of syara, which is maslahah ammah, so as not to be foreign from maqasid syariah, because maslahah is not something that is fundamental in the proof of reason absolutely. Lastly is about the conditions of non-Islamic leadership according to as-siyasah asy-syariah. First is have expertise and professionalism. Second, close monitoring by the government. Third is be honest and trustworthy. Lastly is showing loyalty and obedience to the government. So I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, so I will continue the presentation about the issue relating to appointment of non-Muslim leader, which is the issue of choosing non-Muslim candidate in general election. Election in Arabic are al-intikhobatu, which give the meaning of choice over something. In other words, election can be understood as the process of electing leader which form a government, district or country. So the tradition of electing and replacing leader is only through majority vote or election either at the state or parliamentary level. However, what is the law on voting for non-Muslim candidate in general election? So based on the verse of the Al-Quran, Surah Al-Mumtaha, which means Allah does not forbid you from doing good and being just to those who do not fight you because of your religion, and do not expel you from your home. Oh, Allah love the just. Allah only forbid you from associating with those who fight you because of your religion, and expel you from your home and help others to expel you. And remember, whoever make them close friends, then they are the wrongdoers. So the prohibition from making infidel as wali or close friend only applies to non-Muslim who express enmity and hatred toward Islam and who fight against Muslim. Okay, so we go to the next slide, which is about the view of the scholar on this issue. There are two views on this issue, which is the first is illegal. Okay, opinion of Ibn Munzir agree that leadership should not be handed over to infidel. This means that voting for non-Muslim in general election is illegal. So second is opinion of Al-Jassas. It is haram to ask for help from non-Muslim and trust them. It also means that they are not entitled to gain power, territory over the Muslim, and Ahlul Zimmah cannot hold position in property management. So the last one is Ibn Nujaym al-Hanafi. The condition of selection of Amin Zakat is not allowed on non-Muslim. In matter relating to the condition of selecting of Amin Zakat, non-Muslim have no power over Muslim, and he is also of the view that the practice of giving some position to Jews in his time is haram. Next is the view of the scholar on this issue who said Harus. Okay, Ibn Sa'ad al-Hambali, it is permissible to appoint non-Muslim as a leader in a state of darurah. Okay, this means it is permissible to appoint non-Muslim as a leader or when they are in the majority. However, they must include people can be trusted. Second is Ibn al-Arabi. Appointing non-Muslim is permissible if it has muhakkak benefit. It means it is obligatory to appoint non-Muslim as a leader because it is obligatory to work with non-Muslim when they do not intend to betray Muslim and there is need toward it. So we go to the next slide, which is about the contemporary scholar opinion. Alright, so Dr. Yusuf Al-Qadrawi said non-Muslims have the right to hold state position except for positions that are more dominant of religious element, such as head of state, army commander, judging between Muslim and zakat management. This means should for non-Muslim to hold position with the condition of competence, trust and loyalty to the country army. So Sheikh Wabah Az-Zuhaili giving faith in certain thing with non-Muslim is harus as long as they are not among those who are hostile to Islam and the Muslim. This means as long as non-Muslim do not limit the guidelines that have been set in Islamic leadership, then they are required to hold leadership position. The third point is Sheikh Rashid Ghanouchi. All citizens in an Islamic country have the right to hold all public position in the administration of the country except as Imam and Army Chief. This is because the Imam and the Chief of the Army are both closely related to the task of upholding the religion. So the conclusion for this issue is after examination of the agreement and view of the ulama presented above, there is no counting proposition and probably choosing non-Muslim candidate in the general election in Malaysia and appointing them as a leader. The original law of voting for non-Muslim is in election and appointing them as a leader is a must, except when there are future traits such as threatening the dignity of Islam, distrust and lack of empathize in performing duties. Alright, so I will pass to Nushaira to present about Fiqh Ta'ayush.
Alright, let's move to the next slide, which is the implementation of Fiqh Ta'ayush in dealing with the issues in society. As we know, Fiqh is means of a deep understanding that refers to the knowledge of Islamic laws. Meanwhile, Ta'ayush comes from the word Aish, which means life. So it is can be interpreted as a deep understanding that refers to life. That is Fiqh Ta'ayush. So Fiqh Ta'ayush has been practiced since the time of the Prophet and the Caliphs ar-Rashidin, but on that time they don't call it as the Fiqh Ta'ayush. And Fiqh Ta'ayush is also known as At-Ta'ayush As-Silmi, which means peaceful coexistence. Alright, we move to the next slide. The guidelines, the dawabit of Fiqh At-Ta'ayush is we have 4 guidelines, which the first is there is no compromise in the matter of the faith of Muslims. In the context of the Fiqh of coexistence, one of the important principles that needed to be preserved is the question of faith in line with the position of Hifz ad-Din in hierarchy of Maqasid al-Sharia. Although Islam teaches its people to be good to non-Muslim, but of course the limitation must be taken in matters of faith and Islamic beliefs. So doing good doesn't mean we need to break the faith, right? Meanwhile, the second guideline is association should be in something that is good and not bad, such as one should be friend with non-Muslims, even though the purpose is just not for da'wah, but perhaps it may be in good things such as muamalat, such as selling, buying, or other activities that consider as good things. Meanwhile, we must eliminate all the bad things such as insulting Islamic religions. So the Prophet ﷺ once said in a hadith, which means whoever believe to Allah and hereafter, they don't sit together in a meal which contain alcohol, which alcohol is distributed. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam itself are not allowing it. So in the third guideline is avoid things that are harmful to Muslim. Avoid things that are harmful to Muslim is also one of the important guideline in the context of Fiqh Ta'ayush, because every freedom that has been given to non-Muslim in a country must be ensured not to bring harm to Muslims, such as gathering to attack a Muslim, adultery, or the attempts to apostatize Muslims, murtad. So the fourth guideline is do not do anything that is haram in qat'i. For example, in the issue of ijtihad and mutaghayyirat, one of the methods in Islamic law, لا ينكر تغيير الأحكام بتغيير الأزمان, which means it is irrefutable that rulings in accordance with the change in time. Such changes only occurs in mutaghayyirat and ijtihadi nature only. Meanwhile, in matter of the dawabit, it will never change until the end. So for the conclusion, if we view to the world of society today, we live in the multiracial and multi-religious in most countries. So each people of each country have the same right as each other. So the application of Fiqh Ta'ayush that is oriented to the principle of wasatiyah is necessary, initiated from all parties, whether from the leader to the lower society, or from subordinates to superior, to down to top. So through this mobilization of Fiqh Ta'ayush, Islam is able to be an umbrella of mercy of Lil Alamin, and can ensuring the harmony of life and accordingly, in dealing with the sensitive issues in Malaysia, each part and each people has to play an important role as citizens who are responsible for maintaining the mutual harmony. So Fiqh Ta'ayush, which is based on the wasatiyah approach, should be the basis of the relationship between races and religions. Each people needs to respect each other in addition to resolve the misunderstanding across racial and religious interests. So I think that's all from our group. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.